I have notes today, mainly because I want to answer that question. What is truth? Jesus says he is the King of truth. And Pilate asks that question, what is truth? So I've got about 17 minutes. To answer the question we've all been asking for eternity. So, what is truth? Well, it kind of depends on when you were born. Back in Jesus' day, they operated pretty much in the Hellenistic world, in the Greek world, where Aristotle was kind of the father of all thought, and what they thought was that the truth about something was its essence, or its reason for existence, or something that was kind of mystical inside of it. And we've talked about that kind of thought. We know that's a music stand because it has the essence of music stand. That's the way they thought. And even though that's a chair and that red thing over there is a chair, they don't look alike. The particulars are different, but the essence is the same. They're both chair. And you would recognize things by its essence. And something, its true nature was it's God's nature, and that was the way people thought, and the way the church taught, and people then, like Machiavelli and Bacon and Hume and Copernicus and Kepler and Galileo and Newton and Rousseau and Descartes said, I don't think so. The world's not quite the way you're looking at it. Descartes changed everything by saying, I think, therefore I am. Not that I have some essence, but it's because I think. And the modern age was brought in. It kind of started in the Renaissance. And I don't know if you watched the history program last night, but I learned that although that was already beginning in the Roman Empire, all that knowledge was pretty much lost, if not for the Islamic scholars who brought it to Cordoba, and it was rediscovered because all that had been lost in the Western world. All that Western knowledge had been lost when Rome fell, and it kind of came back through the Islamic scholars to the Renaissance. And then people like Copernicus and Galileo said, no, the world's not flat. No, the earth isn't the center of the universe. And the church reacted. What happens when you go from one way of thinking about what's true to another way of thinking about what's true is you get some pushback. And in that day, the pushback sometimes included beheading, or one of the pushbacks we know about was the Spanish Inquisition. That was kind of rough, because those who hold the truth don't like to give it up to a new way of thinking. And we issued in the modern age, which is an age really dominated by science and facts and figures. 2 + 2 is 4. Life is finite. Tomorrow will come. Gravity works. All those things we know for sure. As Webster's would identify, the truth is being in accord with fact or reality. And we believe that reality was self-evident. One of the great documents of the modern age is our own Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, true, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when we hear those other voices like Gandhi, it says that the truth is by nature self-evident. As soon as you remove the cobwebs of ignorance that surround it, it shines clear. So if you get rid of all the junk that surrounds it, truth becomes evident. Winston Churchill said, the truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. But then those other voices started. Voices like Darwin and Feuerbach and Kant and Schleiermacher and Freud, and you know all these people, right? Well, Feuerbach and Kant and Schleiermacher were theologians, and Darwin was a scientist, and Freud was a psychologist, and then Hegel and Kierkegaard were philosophers, and Nietzsche and Bultmann, another theologian, and Niebuhr, another theologian, and Einstein, you know about him, Stephen Hawking. When we learn chaos theory, we begin to get our brains really muddled about what's true and what is reality. And that began to usher in what we call the postmodern age. Because we began to ask questions like, what are the source of the facts that you're giving me? If they're the five senses, well, they can be fooled. If it comes from authority, well, they have their own agenda. And if it's from science, well, we found out that science can be influenced by its own assumptions. And often the thing you want to prove gets proven, because that's the way you look at the facts. And we ask, what's the source of reality? Are all things really self-evident? And what self gets to say so? Think about the Declaration of Independence. It's a cultural proclamation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, well, actually when it was written, it was all white male landholders are created equal. True? And then it changed to all white males are created equal. And then it changed to all white males and females are created equal. And then it said all people, finally. Well, depends on some other preferences you have, whether you actually have rights or not. It's still an interpretation, isn't it? What the truth is about that statement. That's the point of the postmodern age. It's all relative. And there's some pushback against that too. We don't want relative truths, we want absolutes. We want things to say, this is true for now and all time. Good luck with that. It's tough. It's tough. Especially for those of us in, in theology, because we find out that our world keeps turning upside down all the time. We've learned new ways to interpret Scripture. We've learned that the translations that we had weren't all that good, and we've had to look at new words in places where it's changed, and it's become difficult at times. The postmodern age really begins right after the Enlightenment. And some say it's dead now, but I don't know. There's still a lot of pushback going on. This postmodern age says that many, if not all, apparent realities are just social constructs and therefore subject to change. It claims there is no absolute truth, and that the way people perceive the world is subjective, and emphasizes the role of language and power relations and motivations in the formations of beliefs and ideas. Well, that's way off the other scale, isn't it? Everything is relative. The truth is what we all agree it to be. It's consensus. If enough of us agree on something, it's the truth, whether it's true or not. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thoreau said it takes two to speak truth, one to speak, one to hear. That truth by consensus idea. And quite honestly, we've been told so many lies, we don't even believe facts anymore. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't watch all those programs on TV about Bigfoot and moonwalks and Roswell and Kennedy assassination theories, conspiracy theories, and we don't want to believe, we keep questioning everything all the time. And when we just came through a political season when everybody's truth was what they wanted you to believe, whether it had any basis in fact or not, and of course they made up the facts as they went along. And everybody did it, because if you can get enough people to believe that the candidates are from Mars, or, they all hate their mothers or whatever, I don't know. But if you get enough people to believe it, then you can get, get the other guy not elected. It really, did that strike you odd this year? I mean, it's just people were just making stuff up out of thin air, it seemed like. So it leaves us asking, are there nothing we can hang our hat on anymore? That doesn't seem much like a kingdom. Jesus said he was the king of truth. So what truth was he king of? In Matthew tells us that Jesus used synagogues for meeting places and taught people the truth of God, that God's kingdom was here right now, and they were under God's government. That was the truth. Luke says, to you who are ready for the truth, I say this, love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer for that person. If someone slaps you in the face, hit him back. No, wait, stand there and take it. I read that wrong. If someone grabs your shirt, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. If someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit for tat stuff. Just live generously. That's the truth. Truth's hard to hear sometimes, isn't it? If you really want to talk about truth, you get to John. Jesus says, listen carefully. I'm speaking sober truth to you. I speak only of what I know by experience. I give witness to only what I've seen with my own eyes. There's nothing secondhand here, no hearsay. Everyone who makes a practice of doing evil, addicted to denial and delusion, hates Godlight and won't come near it, fearing a painful exposure. But anyone working and living in truth and reality welcomes God light, so the work can be seen for the God work it is. The truth is knowing who makes everything happen, that we live in God's light. Jesus says anyone who examines the evidence will come to stake his life on this, that God himself is the truth. That's the truth that Jesus talks about. Jesus is speaking to the religious authorities. He said, it's you. It's who you are and the way you live that count before God. Your worship must engage your spirit in the pursuit of truth. The pursuit of truth. I like that phrase. That's the kind of people the Father is out looking for. Those who are simply and honestly themselves before Him in their worship. God is sheer being itself, spirit. And those who worship Him must do it out of their being, their spirit, their true selves, their essence. In adoration. We don't necessarily get rid of everything that came before. We still understand there's that mystical part of us that Aristotle talked about that we can't define with facts and figures. And we know that 2 and 2 is still 4. You know, I mean, things do carry on, but we begin to question how we put them together. Jesus says to the authorities in John 8, he says, if God were your Father, you would love me, for I came from God. I didn't come on my own. God sent me. So why can't you understand one word I say? And he says, here's why. And did Pam ever did she get that loaded? Do you know anything about it? Okay, never mind. I had a 10-second clip of the answer, which was from A Few Good Men, and Jack Nicholson going, you can't handle the truth, which is what Jesus said to the religious authorities. You can't handle the truth. You're from your father, the devil, and all you want to do is please him. He was a killer from the very start. He couldn't stand the truth because he wasn't sure of the truth anyway. When the liar speaks, he makes it up out of his lying nature and fills the world with lies. I arrive on the scene, tell you the truth, and you refuse to have anything to do with me. Can any one of you convict me of a single misleading word, a single sinful act? But I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me? Anyone on God's side listens to God's words. That's why you're not listening, because you're not on God's side. Basically, the exchange he has with Pilate that we read this morning. And not only that, but Jesus reminds his disciples that when he leaves, he says, I will talk to the Father, and he will provide you another friend, so that you will always have someone with you. And this friend is the Spirit of truth. This Holy Spirit. This godless world can't take him in because it doesn't have eyes to see him. But you already know him, and because he's inside of you. And he will guide you in all ways that are true. And then another little tidbit that came along in Acts when Peter had this dream and came back to the disciples and he said, it's God's own truth. Nothing could be plainer. God plays no favorites. Makes no difference who you are or where you're from. If you want God and are ready to do as he says, the door's open. Aren't you glad Peter had that dream? That's a big part of what we believe to be true. The message, the good news that he sent to the children of Israel, the truth is that through Jesus Christ, everything is being put together again. And that he's doing it everywhere, among everyone. And my favorite from John's letter, God is love. Now there's the truth. You can hang your head. So, preacher, here's the truth. Are you ready for the truth? You can handle it. This is what I believe. God is the source of all life and creator of all that we call the universe. We're still learning how and why he did it. Okay? God created us and gave us life so that we, in the likeness of God, could live in love and harmony with God and with each other. And in his likeness, gave us the freedom to make our own choices. Sometimes we don't choose very well. God also created fear to protect us from the inherent dangers in nature and to motivate us to learn to protect ourselves and each other. But we allowed fear to take on a personality of its own. We even gave it names. And used it to justify our choices to create disharmony between us and God and with each other. We allowed fear to rule our lives. But God loved us too much to have that continue. So he continually inspired some among us to lead us and teach us and lead us down paths that restore our relationship with God, but we didn't listen very much. But that didn't stop God. God loved us so much that he decided to live among us in that person that we call Jesus. To free us from the bondage of the fears that ruled us by whatever means it took. Whatever means that we understood, either sacrifice, or forgiveness, or example, or teachings, or victory over death, the thing we fear the most. All this just so we could live in harmony and love with God and each other. Some have heard that truth. And the truth has set them free. And for those who have, it's their responsibility to show and tell those who haven't heard that truth, so that they can be free of fear too. That's our job. And even though it may seem like we're not listening still, and perhaps we never will. In the end, I believe love wins. God wins. All will be reconciled to him. So Pilate